Okay, everyone, we're going to get started. Just to let everyone know, this webinar is being recorded and it will be posted on the district's YouTube channel. My name is Rachel Lambert. I am one of the supervisors of special education at Interboro School District. Ryan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. Thanks for everyone who attending tonight. My name is Ryan Snyder. I am another one of the supervisors of special education.
Paul?
And my name is Paul Corinth. I'm the Director of Special Ed for Interboro. Welcome, everyone.
All right, and we have had the pleasure of beginning a partnership with AHEDD this school year with Michelle and Les. We had attended a training earlier in the school year, and throughout the entire training, we felt like this was most beneficial for our parents to hear. And every time that I hear the training or go back to the training, I learn something new. So if you have questions throughout this training, please use the Q&A feature, as they will be answered at the end, or Ryan will be answering them throughout the webinar. If the chat feature, we ask that you only use that if you're trying to talk to the panelist. So only the panelists will be able to see the chat feature. Throughout the presentation, we are trying to keep this very generic. We will ask that you do not mention your child's name in the Q&A or even in the chat. But if you have any questions personally that you'd like to talk about, please contact Paul, Ryan, or I at any time. We're happy to help. Michelle and Les, whenever you would like to get started. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. Today we're going to be talking about AHEDD's Work Incentive Counseling Services. And basically what Work Incentive Counseling is an overview of how does work impact a person's SSI or SSDI disability benefits. And I thought Les and I might introduce ourselves just a little bit before we get started. So again, my name is Michelle Boardman. I'm a employment coordinator with AHEDD and also a community partner work incentive counselor, which is basically a benefits counselor. I've been with AHEDD for almost 10 years, and I've been doing benefits counseling for as long as that. And basically I got into this line of work because I myself have a disability and I use a wheelchair for mobility, and I'm also an SSI recipient and I received Medicaid. So for me, it was really important as I was, starting my career and the world of employment to really understand what was going to happen with my SSI cash benefits and my Medicaid when I started employment and started earning a paycheck. And for the longest time, I really didn't understand the rules. I didn't know, any of the information that I've learned over the years. So now that, I have this information, I really believe in informed choice for individuals so that they, can make good financial decisions when it comes to employment and when it comes to how that's going to impact their benefits. And everyone's individualized in their situation, how their disability impacts them and their government benefits, what services they may need from the federal, the local, or the state government, and the supports that they receive. So work incentive counseling is really tailored for those individual needs and to address employment with those different situations. So we're going to be talking about that today. And I'll turn it over to Les.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for inviting us. My name is Les Riggle. I am an employment specialist with AHEDD. I started with AHEDD about 5 years ago. Very much a second career for me. I was in manufacturing and manufacturing fabrication most of my life, management and sales and distribution of manufactured products. So this was very much of a change for me. When I was in college, coming out of college, I considered going into the human services field, but I never really, that just never happened. Other things happened, and 35 years later, here I am. So I started with AHEDD about 5 years ago as an employment specialist, helping people with disabilities to obtain and maintain employment. About 2 years ago, I entered into the Community Partner Work Incentive Counseling Program, received some extensive training through Social Security on how their benefits work, how they are impacted by earned income. And for the last 2 years, I've spent a good deal of my time sharing that information with families and participants who are receiving benefits, those who are thinking about going to work for the first time, maybe for returning to work after a long period of time off, all different kinds of scenarios. And just as Michelle said, to understand and have knowledge and be able to make your own decision about what exactly you want to do regarding your benefits and your working career. So we can start, I guess, now with the next slide.
I swear this worked like a minute ago. There we go.
There we go.
I'm sorry.
Okay, good. So AHEDD was established in 1977. We've been around a while. It was, I think, a fairly novel idea at the time to help people with disabilities get out of the workshop environment and into the competitive world of working. We are in the state, only in the state of Pennsylvania. We serve this entire state of Pennsylvania. We have 9 other offices scattered around the state. So we cover all the counties. And Michelle and I work out of the Philadelphia office. We cover the 5-county area: Bucks, Montgomery, Philly, Delaware, and parts of Chester. We supply employment services, pre-employment, which is listed there, job development, job coaching, follow along. They're all part of the process. Just kind of think of that as a continuum. Pre-employment is people who typically haven't worked before or are getting back into work, maybe for the first time in a long time. Resume development, career assessment, discovering what they want to do, what their skills and abilities and interests are. Interview preparation, preparing, getting used to the idea of, interviewing for a job. That segues into what we call job development, which is actually looking for a job. We are finding competitive employment for all our participants. We don't have a bag of jobs, so to speak. We don't dip into a bag and pull out a job and just say, this one's for you. So we're looking to look in the open market to see what jobs are available and try to fit our people into a good place for them, a good environment for them. After they get the job, it requires job coaching, which helps them learn the job, what's expected of them as an employee. Training, we assist the employer is responsible for the training, but we assist in that and support that. And then follow along is after a person gets established in a job, we provide continued follow along support. It may be dropping into the job site once every week or every other week, maybe a phone call, but regular interaction with the individual and also and frequently with the employer. So we try to have a strong relationship with the employers as well. So we can assist. Sometimes they'll call us up and say, so-and-so is having a little trouble with this. Can you kind of help out? What would be a good way to approach that kind of thing? We also, as an office, as an organization, offer work incentive counseling services. Started with our office in 2001. We are under the Pew Charitable Trust, which provides us grant funding for providing these services to age 14 to 30. Okay, so not only is it encompassing students, but also well into their adult years. We provide this service under the Pew Trust grant funding. Also strongly involved with the Ticket to Work program. This is something that comes through Social Security. We are an employment network, authorized employment network from Social Security, which means the Ticket to Work is basically encouraging people who frequently have somewhat of a work history, have been on benefits and want to go back to work. Also, people who are looking to be employed for the first time, all of whom would be receiving Social Security benefits. Social Security wants to encourage them to consider trying to work. And this is, again, what we support with the above services, from job development to job coaching all the way through. Transition services is something that we provide for schools. We sometimes are able to partner with a particular school district, actually develop a contract relationship with them to provide either individualized or group services. Sometimes with the individual, they're assigned one of our employment specialists who work with them even at a very young age, even as young as 14, to start thinking about work, to start exploring potential careers and that kind of thing. I think Michelle, the next slide, Michelle.
Okay, I really have to figure out how to make this work. Anyway, so the next slide basically goes over some of the concerns that we hear a lot in terms of myths and misinformation that we receive when, we get asked, what will happen with my benefits when I go to work? So again, these are all myths and misinformation that we've heard over the years, but I myself, as an SSI recipient, thought some of these things or heard some of these things from, my network, people that I knew. Even my mom and dad would often question, are you sure you can make that much money? We've also heard, I can only work 20 hours a week. I don't know where that arbitrary number comes from, but it's a myth. I don't know if I can work because of my disability. Certainly that can be, a mental barrier to obtaining work. If I go to work, I'm afraid I'll lose my medical coverage. That's a major concern for many of the beneficiaries that we work with. Most people are not as concerned about the financial benefit, the cash benefit that they receive. They're more concerned about continuing their medical coverage. Some instances we hear, it took me so long to get on benefits, I can't afford to lose them. 2/3 of individuals who apply for Social Security benefits get denied the first time. So 66% of people, have to go through an appeal process, and it can sometimes take up to 5 years to become eligible for a cash benefit. And I'm sure many of you who have gone through this process may have had difficulty with the actual application and receiving benefits. So the length of time to qualify can certainly be a barrier. And then some individuals did try out work without receiving benefits counseling first, and they ended up owing Social Security money. We call that an overpayment. And, that really deters somebody from wanting to work because they don't want that to happen again. So part of benefits counseling is to have this proactive approach so that people know what to expect with Social Security, helping individuals to communicate properly with Social Security, help them to report their earnings, and any unusual circumstances that may arise. That's part of the benefits counseling process as well.
Okay, so what is work incentive counseling? So the purpose is to provide accurate and correct information about how work and income will impact the person's SSI and SSDI benefits and their Medicaid and Medicare and other state, local, and federal benefits such as waiver services and food stamps. As we've already said a couple times, there's so much misinformation out there. People hear things, people believe things. They think it might be true. They think it might not be true. Something happened to a friend. That's where the accurate and correct information comes in. So we want to make sure that they have the information for them to make their own decision about which way they want to go. We're not going to try to influence one way or the other. We would like this, we want them to become financially independent if possible. But basically we're just pointing out, how the best way for them to achieve that without negatively impacting their disability. CPWICs, again, Community Partner Work Incentive Counselors. We are highly trained. We get quite a bit of initial and ongoing training, and we receive certification through Social Security to help understand, identify, and apply these work incentives, which we call them, to their income to achieve a more successful outcome for themselves. And then, our goal, of course, is to increase the knowledge and understanding and help individuals to make their informed choices about what they want to do with their work career, how they want their work to impact their benefits and healthcare, so that they're going into everything with their eyes open. There's no surprises, hopefully. That's our goal, is to inform of that and help them understand exactly what's going to happen. Next slide.
Yep. Oh my goodness. All right.
Not gerbils, huh?
There we go. I'm just going to do that. All right. So I think we should talk a little bit about the applying for benefits piece. I know that some parents, when we do these presentations, have questions about the application process, and some parents may have students or children that are already receiving Social Security benefits. So these are just some pointers that if you're going through the application process or you're looking to apply for benefits, some things that you should know. So if an individual is applying for SSI benefits, which is Supplemental Security Income, you should definitely know a few things regarding that program. One of them being that there is a financial needs basis, that when you're applying, Social Security looks at the individual's finances first to determine eligibility. And one of the financial requirements for SSI is that an individual can have no more than $2,000 to their name. So in terms of resources and assets, if an individual has more than $2,000 in the bank or in stocks, bonds, CODs, that sort of thing, then basically they will be disqualified for benefits until their assets are below the $2,000 limit. So, determining the program that you're going to apply to, whether or not you're going to apply to SSI or SSDI, there may be some financial requirements initially when an individual applies for those benefits that need to be predetermined. So there's a 3-step process when an individual is applying for benefits. The first step is when Social Security is making a determination. The first step has to do with the financial eligibility. And then the second step is basically, is the disability that the individual has severe enough to warrant benefit acceptance? So basically, will they be eligible for benefits based on the severity of their disability? And there's several pieces of documentation that can definitely be very helpful, so that when the Disability Determination Service, who is the third party that Social Security utilizes to make the disability determination, Social Security does not actually make the disability determination. They send it over to DDS. the Disability Determination Service in Pennsylvania. So basically, when DDS receives all of your documentation about your child's disability, there are some things that you can include in there that would be very helpful. Oftentimes, Social Security asks for the bare minimum. You know, they're asking only for doctor names and numbers and diagnoses and addresses to contact them. But, you know, it can be very helpful for the parent to gather some information from their doctors in advance regarding their child's disability. So, you know, are there medical records? Are there doctor's reports? Are there any recent test results that can be included when you're sending over this documentation for the Disability Determination Service? And also, are there any third-party letters from either support or service providers that you could include that would discuss the individual's ability to work? Because when Social Security is considering whether a person is disabled or not, they are looking at whether the person will be able to earn substantial gainful activity, SGA. So substantial gainful activity is a figure that Social Security determines, and basically there's a threshold at which if a person is capable of earning over that particular threshold, then they may not qualify for disability benefits. So, you know, when we think about what documentation, what third-party support letters, we really want to look at the individual's functional capacity. You know, what are their limitations? What are their challenges? And I know in the school system, we oftentimes are trying to focus on their strengths and all the things that they can do, especially for the IEP. And I totally understand that. But when it comes to applying for disability benefits, you definitely want to look at what are going to be the challenges for this individual in life, you know, maybe related to self-care, maybe related to financial management. There's many different categories that the person may have difficulty in, but also how is their disability going to impact their ability to work at a substantial level? So when considering what evidence and what documentation to submit, it would be helpful, you know, if you're considering if the child may get other, you know, maybe they have an IEP, but maybe they also have speech therapy, or they receive physical therapy or occupational therapy. Maybe they have mental health counseling, and they have a therapist or a psychiatrist. You know, receiving letters, getting letters from those individuals, their support team, special education teachers, anybody that really can speak to their level of disability and how it will impact their ability to work in the future is going to be very important to help those your student to be able to get eligible for benefits. So the first thing that we talked about in terms of eligibility was the financial requirement, but also, is this person able to work at substantial gainful activity? The second piece was, is this disability severe enough, and the supporting documentation needed for that? And then the third criteria is this disability intended to last for at least 12 months or will result in death? So there's that third criteria for the duration piece of qualifying for disability benefits. And I included a link at the bottom. It's a helpful PDF document that could give more information about this.
Okay, so we've been tossing around the terms SSI and SSDI, and they frequently are lumped together, but in reality, they are drastically different programs. and they they each treat earned income from a job drastically differently. So with SSDI, the medical assistance that goes with that is Medicare. SSDI is Social Security Disability Insurance. This is based on the work history of an individual or the retired or the parents' work history of a person with disabilities if they're retired or deceased. So there's a way of that child with disability, of obtaining benefits based on the parent's work history. So this is an insurance which the worker pays into throughout the course of their working career. And this is what that benefit is based on. Either, again, as I said, either based on the parents' income or their own income. So, if there's someone who's been working as a truck driver for 20 years, and they have a back injury and they're no longer able to do that, they can go out on disability. They've been paying into it, so they get an amount of money, cash benefit, along with the Medicare piece of it, to provide their needs until and if they're ready to go back to work. So it could be a long-term thing, it could be a short-term thing, a relatively short-term thing. SSI, on the other hand, is supplemental security income. This is needs-based. It's basically to provide income support to those with low income or zero income, and provides a bare substance of living. With that goes the Medicaid for your medical assistance. And again, it's a lesser amount typically than the SSDI. And it is, and both cash benefits are impacted vastly differently from earned income. So next slide.
These are the different Social Security work incentives. As Les was saying previously, depending on the type of cash benefit and benefit program that you're eligible for, there are different work incentives for each of those categories. So if you're an SSI recipient, you get access to certain work incentives, whereas if you're an SSDI beneficiary, you have access to different work incentives. And income impacts both of these programs very differently. The short version is that in the SSI program, there's a reduction in the cash benefit based on the person's earned income, their countable earned income. Whereas in the SSDI program, for a period of time, you can be eligible for your SSDI check, but depending on how much your earnings are over time, you may receive and be eligible for all of your benefit, or your benefit may eventually suspend depending on your earnings. So really, depending on what benefit you're receiving can really determine your access to work incentives and how the cash benefit will be impacted. So in the SSI program, there's 1619B, extended Medicaid status, there's the student earned income exclusion, the plan to achieve self-support, and there's some other work incentives for individuals who are blind or may have impairment-related work expenses that can be used as deductions to a person's earned income. The Ticket to Work program is also a work incentive both for SSI and SSDI individuals, and it can assist with supporting a person's work effort and wanting to go back to work. Whereas in the SSDI program, the trial work period, extended period of eligibility, cessation and grace, extended period of Medicare coverage, IRBs, subsidies, special conditions. Again, these are all terms that you don't necessarily have to memorize or understand or know. That's my job, and that's Les's job. This is, our area of expertise, and we can help guide you with determining what programs and what work incentives, what special rules there are that are appropriate for your particular situation.
So I want to talk for the next few slides about the SSI program. As you can see, we're designating between the two of these pretty little bubbles there, yellow and green. So this was instituted back under the Nixon administration. I guess it was about 1970 or so. I don't see it on the slide anywhere. Anyway, it's supplemental security income. It's means tested for low income individuals who currently have low resources and available to both children and adults and the elderly. The low resources is important that we'll talk about based on limited assets, bank accounts, savings, CDs, even retirement benefits. And I should check that with Michelle, but basically it's limited assets of less than $2,000. Okay, so at application and ongoing. So it doesn't seem initially like it's a good way. It doesn't encourage one to save money, but we'll see that there are options for that later. But the point is, it's for low income, low resource individuals. The full benefit rate for 2021 is $794 a month. That's the maximum amount that you can get. You may receive less than that based on certain other living conditions. If it's a young person living under their parents' roof, they may be reduced by a third of that even. And the other thing is that's reduced by earned income, as we'll see. Earnings under SGA, Michelle mentioned that word, substantial gainful activity, which is for this year, $1,310. Your earnings have to be below that for eligibility. You can earn a little bit more than that before you totally lose your cash benefit, but as we'll see, as your earnings go up, your cash benefit is reduced. So that's a way of understanding it. Very roughly speaking, it's for every $2 that you earn, you're going to lose $1 in cash benefit. So you're always going to make more money, but your cash benefit is eventually going to go away as you earn, as you have more and more earned income. And then there's a small DHS monthly benefit in Pennsylvania of $22.10 a month. There you go. So as I said, the earned income from work reduces the SSI cash benefit gradually. There's a fairly complex calculation based on the countable income. This includes both the earned income from work and also unearned income. Someone may be receiving some SSDI benefits that will impact the amount. There's also exclusions and deductions. This is where the work incentives come in, because they're actually a way of excluding some of your income from the countable income. So Social Security does not look at a certain thing, a certain amount of that your income based on that exclusion. Also, it can be affected by child support. Down the bottom line there, we see the SSDI benefits, also for not paying for food and shelter costs, because you're living under your parents' roof or someone else's roof, so they take away some for that as well. Again, we say that the $2,000 resource limit needs to be maintained on a monthly basis to remain SSI eligible. and it's reduced by earned income and earned income. Okay, next slide. And here's a little chart here, which is kind of helpful sometimes. In column 1, you can see the person who is not working at all, $0 income. He's getting the full $794 per month. Column 2, he gets a job. He starts earning some money, $800 a month. So that SSI is reduced, not by quite half, but by a little bit less than half. Again, that's roughly speaking. That's all according to a calculation that we do. And by the way, we do that right in our work incentive counseling session. We talk to the participant about their goals, about how much are they working? If they're not working, what kind of work are they looking for? How much do they expect to make? And then we can actually do the calculation, say, this is what's going to happen. If you get that job at PetSmart that you're thinking about, if you get that job at Giant that you're thinking about, and you're working X number of hours, making X number of dollars per hour, this is what's going to happen to your cash benefit. So that's really helpful sometimes for families to see that in black and white before they even start to enter. So columns 3, 4, 5, you can see the income is increasing, the SSI benefit is decreasing, but overall, of course, the total income is increasing. So that's the idea. You're always going to make more money if you're working. That's just the reality of the SSI. Finally, by column 6, they've reached what we call the break-even point, which is something over $1,600 a month this year, at which point you stop receiving any cash benefit. The important thing here up in the upper right-hand corner is the Medicaid threshold. So you have continuing Medicaid coverage. We'll see that. I think it's on the next slide. But your Medicaid does not stop when your cash benefit stops. According to this chart, you can see it continues all the way up to $3,872 a month, which translate into over $46,000 a year. I think that's on the next slide. Yeah, so extended Medicaid coverage, we call that 1619B status. So even long after the person has worked themselves off of the cash benefits, they still maintain their SSI eligibility, which means a couple things. A, they can go back on SSI if their earned income reduces for any reason, cash. And B, and probably more importantly to most people, is they continue their medical coverage under Medicaid, all the way up to earnings of $46,458 a year. That's actually a big jump from last year. It's over $6,000 from $38,431. One of the little catches here is, again, we still have to continue to limit your resources to under $2,000 per month. But you can see how even as your income increases, your cash benefits go away, but your medical coverage is definitely protected. Okay, a couple of the work incentives we're going to talk about briefly is the student earned income exclusion. So this is designed for students under the age of 22. Put something out here. So this is for a student who's under the age of 22. He's enrolled in school. He's regularly attending school. He's receiving SSI, and he's earning a paycheck. This SEIE, student earned income exclusion, is designed to decrease the amount of countable earned income that's reported, and it permits the student to continue receiving his SSI. You can see that amount is up to $1,930 a month, which is pretty significant. So as long as they meet those criteria, they basically can work a significant amount of time, earn a significant amount of dollars, and still maintain their SSI cash benefit. Again, he has to be attending school. He has to provide proof of being in school and being a regular student. And they have kind of detailed descriptions for what a regular student is, but it's fairly liberal. It's nothing too hard to achieve. The second one on the right-hand side is the PASS, the Plan to Achieve Self-Support. This is basically an agreement between Social Security and the beneficiary. It allows for the beneficiary to, again, use his countable income or resources for goods or services that they need in order to reach a projected employment goal. So it's fairly complex agreement, which is set up between, and this is something, again, that we would help with, that the CWIC or CPWIC would assist with, is writing up and submitting this PASS. It's an application. It's fairly detailed. It's fairly precise, and it's monitored by a regional PASS cadre through the Social Security office. But it is a way of saving money for a specific employment goal. So it's, again, and so that's earned income. You write that off. As long as you save that, you write that off towards your plan goal, your vocational goal, and that does not then affect your Social Security cash benefit. So again, it's a really valuable tool for being able to plan for the future and save money for the future, as is the ABLE account. Now, you may have seen you're seeing commercials for these things on TV, PA ABLE accounts. They're basically designed to do the same thing. They provide tax-free savings accounts to people who are with a disability. It's administered by the Pennsylvania Treasury Department. They actually invest your money into a variety of options, which they monitor. The individual can save up to $15,000 a year with a total amount of $100,000. Again, this is not counted towards the resources. So this is one way of saving. But so obviously you can save a good deal of your earnings toward those through these, either the PASS or the ABLE, and it allows you to build something of a financial base. There is an ongoing quarterly fee of $15 per quarter. You have, basically, your money is designed to be used for a very, I will say, open description, an open definition of qualified disability expenses. So, pretty much anything. You could use that money to save for a home, save for an apartment, a car, an education. All those things would be fine. As we say, it doesn't count. You can't save for a vacation. You can't save to go to Hawaii on it. But other basically normal living expenses are considered qualified disability expenses. And I don't know if you can see, I can't see on my screen, but there is a website at the bottom there. Hopefully you can see that. If not, we can provide that. Kind of got chopped off on my screen.
Thanks, Les. The website was www.paable.gov on that previous slide. So in discussing Social Security Disability Insurance, or the SSDI program, we just spent, 15 or so minutes going over the SSI program. So SSDI is a whole different income support program. It was started in the 50s, and basically your entitlement to this benefit is based on your work history and your age. So individuals who are younger it may be easier for them to qualify based on their age and their work history than someone who is older. But the monthly benefit that a person receives is based on the quarters of credit that they earn, and average, as of last year's figures, the average SSDI cash benefit is $12.77 per month. So it is higher than the maximum benefit that you would be eligible for in the SSI program. Unlike SSI that has an automatic eligibility for the cash benefit and the Medicaid, in the SSDI program, there's a 6-month wait for the cash benefit and a 2-year wait before you can be eligible for Medicare, which is the health insurance connected to this program. And also of note, this is also a Title II benefit, but a child disability benefit or CDB benefits. They were previously named Disabled Adult Child or DAC benefits, but basically these are for individuals who are at least 18 years old and became disabled before the age 22, and they meet the definition of disability, but they're receiving a cash benefit and Medicare based on their parents' work record. And their parent of this disabled child has to be disabled, deceased, or retired in order for the child to be eligible for the benefit. So as I said before, the cash benefit is based on the parent's work record. And for individuals who are receiving CDB benefits, they're eligible for Medicare automatically. There is no waiting period. And just a slight caveat, with all of these benefit programs, there's some pluses and there's some minuses to both of them. As you were saying in the SSI program, the SSI program allows you to earn a good deal of money, but you really can't save money. In the CDB program, if you get married, your benefits will terminate. The benefit that you receive off of your parents' work record will terminate if you get married to somebody who is not also receiving the CDB benefit. And then in the SSDI program, as we'll see in a second, there's not a really high capacity for earnings. So in the SSDI program, even though there are no resource limits, meaning that there's no asset test, no financial eligibility requirements in terms of your assets and resources, there are, however, work incentives that are available to individuals receiving SSDI or CDB that basically dictate how long a beneficiary will remain eligible for their cash benefit. So when a person engages in work for the first time and they're receiving either SSDI or CDB benefits, the first work incentive that they will run into is something called the trial work period. And this is basically a period of time where an individual who hasn't worked or who hasn't worked in a while is able to test out their ability to work. And the trial work period can last for up to 9 months, non-consecutive, where basically an individual can receive their full cash benefits that they receive through SSDI or CDB, regardless of their earnings. So while they're working, they're still getting their SSDI or CDB check. However, once that trial work period ends, something called the extended period of eligibility begins, which lasts for 36 consecutive months. And depending on whether or not a person is earning a certain level of earnings, what they term SGA or substantial gainful activity, a person can either be eligible for all of their cash benefit or none of their cash benefit after all of their work incentives, income exclusions and deductions are applied. So SGA, as I said earlier, is $13.10 in 2020, and Depending on the person's earnings from work, they may either be eligible for all of their benefit, or their benefit may go into suspension status after the trial work period ends. And then after a period of time, depending on what their level of earnings are, they could eventually terminate from benefits if they earn a pattern of earnings over SGA level, for a significant amount of time. So these benefits are vastly different from each other. And in the SSDI and CDB benefit program, a person is eligible for Medicare coverage. Depending on the person's earnings, the person can either be eligible for Medicare for the rest of their life, or if their earnings are over SGA after the trial work period ends and after they exhaust their extended period of eligibility, Medicare can continue for at least another 57 months, but it could potentially end. So during benefits counseling, Les and myself, we go through all of these different periods and help an individual to understand, what their, not only their cash benefit, but what their Medicare or their Medicaid timeline might look like, so that they can plan for the future and what's going to happen if they are no longer receiving a benefit.
Okay, so the Ticket to Work program we mentioned briefly earlier. This is sponsored through Social Security, and it's basically to encourage their beneficiaries who are receiving cash benefits to consider working, employment, and setting employment goals, and considering going back to work or going to work for the first time. They have a system of employment network set up, of which AHEDD is one, as well as OVR services are also considered employment networks through this Social Security Ticket to Work. So it's a virtual ticket. Everyone with a disability is assigned with one if they're receiving benefits, and only one agency at a time can hold that ticket. So the idea then is to provide assist individuals who are receiving those benefits in obtaining employment by setting up specific goals: long-term employment goals, short-term employment goals. We go through a process. It's called an individual work plan, an IWP, where we sit down and work through a document with the individual to set up goals. So they have to, this is what Social Security wants to see. They want to see something in writing for the next three. A short-term goal is 3 to 18 months. A long-term goal is 2 to 5 years. It can change, but it has to be realistic. There's an acronym: SMART, specific, measurable, accessible, I think, realistic, and timely. And basically the goals have to be realistic goals that are achievable. And these are things that the Social Security wants to see, and we assist them on that, basically to increase their independence, to increase their financial independence, and decrease their dependency on Social Security benefits. Okay. So we do work incentive counseling through virtual meetings now, almost exclusively. Well, exclusively now. We used to always do it in person. Over the last year, since COVID, we've transitioned into phone meetings, Zoom meetings, Skype meetings. So we encourage family participation, certainly a rep payee. If a beneficiary has a rep payee or any family member or support staff that they would like in there. We'd like as many people to hear this as possible. It's pretty complex information, and the more they hear it, the better. We follow up with the meeting itself with a benefit summary analysis, which is a report which kinds of gives in detail a review of everything that we talked about at the meeting. And we talk about these various work incentives that are available, whether it's a student student exclusion or an IRWI, a impairment related work expense, which I don't think we talked about, but there's these incentives and exclusions which we address, and it's very individualized because we ask a lot of questions about the family, about the beneficiary, the employment goals, what their needs are, how their disability may present challenges. And we kind of assess for all those things and see if we can give them more information about how they can manage their benefits better to their own advantage. Since we are providing services up to age 30 through our Pew grant, we do continual follow-up. It could be every year, it could be every 3 months, whatever the case may be, whatever it's necessary. We frequently get questions from individuals or families years and years after they started working, and about, as they proceed through their benefits and through their stages and through their work incentives of what's going to happen next. So we're always there for follow-up information.
So the next slide has to do with the benefits planning query. This is a document that we utilize during work incentive counseling to verify an individual's benefits and their work status. And it's a planning tool that Social Security would like us to use during benefits counseling. Basically, this is what on the right-hand side is an example of the BPQI and what is being requested. So basically it verifies the type of benefit that the individual is receiving, whether it's SSDI or SSI, their current status, are they in pay status or non-pay status. It shows the date of disability onset and the date of entitlement and how much the individual is receiving in their cash benefit. Many times I have, questions from individuals about concerns, what else is the BPQI going to show? Does it talk about my disability or release my medical health information? And it doesn't. It's just a snapshot that we utilize for benefits counseling. And we do recommend it being obtained prior to work incentive counseling services, which is something that we can assist with, but it doesn't necessarily have to be prior to the meeting. It could be after, for scheduling purposes. And it is offered free of charge by Social Security for individuals who are receiving SSI or SSDI and who are interested in work. So this is a quote from one of the participants that we've worked with. We started working with him in high school, and basically this gentleman said that work incentive counseling has been an indispensable resource for himself and his family as he transitioned into adulthood. We've assisted him with guidance and suggestions on ways to navigate life as a disabled adult that he would have not discovered on his own. And then this final piece is just a brief overview regarding waivers. I know that some of you may have a child who may need home and community-based services and supports as they, navigate life. And after high school, some of the services that you receive as a student no longer transfer over once you graduate high school and move into other systems. So waivers can be a good funding source for services and supports that may be needed as that individual, progresses through life. So for instance, IDS, which is intellectual disability support, waivers basically can include the autism waiver, person family directed support waiver, which is PFDS, the community living waiver, and the consolidated waiver. And these waivers can assist individuals with intellectual disabilities with living in their community as opposed to living in a nursing home or being institutionalized. So some of the services and supports could be, employment related. They could be rehabilitation help. It could be therapy services. At the bottom of the slide, there's the DHS website regarding alternatives to nursing homes, which is what the waivers are. So there's also for individuals with more physical needs, the Office of Long-Term Living administers the attendant care waiver independence over Enact 150. And basically that's for individuals with physical disabilities. And to sign up with OLTL, you would go through the enrollment broker, which is Maximus. The top right corner has the phone number for that. And for IDS, you would contact the county to get started with services for that. And there are some eligibility requirements. So if you go to the website at the bottom of the page, that can help to direct you for more information.
So finally there, you see a copy of our referral form, which I think we will have available. Basically, it's the eligibility is for, as we said, 14 to 30, ages 14 to 30, receiving SSI or SSDI benefits. And we provide this work incentive counseling at no charge. Like we've been saying, it's through this Pew Charitable Trust grant funding. Michelle's contact information is there. Basically, if you're a parent or staff who has a student or child, receiving benefits, and you want to learn more about how work and considering work, or anytime in the future, or now, this is probably a valuable tool that you may want to take advantage of. And so we just ask you to provide the information there, and we will be in touch. We will set up a session as soon as possible, and we will want to first obtain a copy of that BPQI, but we can start this process. I think it would be beneficial.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I'm going to quickly go through some of the questions and the answers if you or Michelle feel comfortable answering them.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
The first one we have is, once a person gets SSDI, are there times when they are reevaluated to see if they continue to qualify?
Yeah, so Social Security, whether you're receiving SSI or SSDI, typically will have a medical review that an individual has to provide additional documentation from their doctors regarding their disability. So depending on what that time scale looks like, it really depends on what the disability is. So I have a permanent disability, for instance. I have muscular dystrophy, and my review schedule is every 7 years. Somebody with a mental health impairment typically has a review schedule every 1 to 3 years. And intellectual disability falls into between 1 and 7, depending on what Social Security determines. But yes, they do a medical review. If you're working, there will typically be an annual work review as well, where they will take a look at your earnings from work and determine your eligibility for continued cash benefits.
Thank you. We have another question that says that their daughter receives SSI, but they don't get the $21.10 from DHS. How is that included?
So if they're not receiving the 2110 and they're not currently working, then I would recommend they contact the county assistance office and let them know that they're not receiving the state benefit that they should be receiving.
And the last one says, I have a child who is special ed with an IEP. Can they get SSI? And do they look at the family's income or just the child's?
That's a great question. And I'm glad that you addressed that, because it's something I forgot to address. I just wanted to mention that for SSI recipients who are under the age of 18, Social Security will look at the parent's income and resources in determining eligibility for benefits. However, once the child turns 18, Social Security only looks at income and resources of the child. So the individual that turned 18. And then there was a second part to that question.
Yeah, the second part is if they do get SSI, then at that point, can that money be put into that savings account? I'm assuming that savings account is probably the ABLE one that you spoke about.
Yes, you can deposit some of the money into the ABLE account. If the individual is paying towards the cost of their food and shelter benefits in order to receive the full federal benefit rate, they would of course have to pay their rent piece first, and then the remaining money could go into an ABLE. But the maximum yearly amount that an individual can have deposited into their ABLE is $15,000. So anything over $15,000 to that individual's name in the ABLE account would basically be counted as a resource.
I mean, those are all the questions that we had. Let me quick check the chat. We got a thank you, which was very nice. So that is all that I see here. Rachel, want to bring it home?
Yep. Thank you so much for everyone attending. Again, this will be recorded. I know there were a lot of links listed in the PowerPoint. When we, the webinar recipients, I will be able to send the PowerPoint to you when I get it. And that form that was mentioned towards the end, we will put that on our website as well. So that is always will be accessible to you as a parent. I really want to say thank you to Michelle and Les. We really appreciate this partnership that we have gained. Again, I've learned new things, and I do think that it's very hard to navigate, especially as someone who is just getting involved in the transition age of a student. And I think having you available and knowing that you're available is definitely comforting to our families. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, have a great night. I will stop the recording now as well.
All right, good night, everybody.